Alrighty, boys and girls, conference championship week has arrived. What a season it has been. Craziness and every which way. It's been a minute since we've seen you, but welcome back. High Top Sports Georgia. Got JT on with us. And look at us, sitting pretty, going into conference week, both in the playoff, most likely. You never want to put anything too far in the committee's hands, but it looks like we're safe for now. Gonna get into the recent reveal of the playoff bracket, get into the SEC championship game, obviously our big concern here on this channel, but also talk about a couple of the other games, betting lines, what we like. But yeah, JT, any thoughts here?
No, it's been a long road. Finally made it. There's some teams that are happy that they're probably not playing in this game. Talking about Ole Miss, but complaining that they're not in. So now they're wishing they're in. But I think we got some good matchups here, and I think we got some movement that could occur this weekend. College football playoff committee's kind of made it clear that these games are not going to have any impact on these rankings, but we'll see about that. We'll see about that.
Yeah, at least to the fact that they're not the teams playing aren't going to be kicked out is kind of what I heard as well. So like SMU, that's obviously the big question. But we'll get into all of that now. But yeah, the first four teams I saw with the bye they had, which is crazy to me. I never even thought about this. The Big 12 team being the 12th seed and Boise State being in. I have kind of a problem with that, even though the Big 12 has been kind of down. I still don't see what I mean. I can see Boise State if they had an unbelievable year, if they would have beat Oregon, maybe you put them in. But have they proven anything that they're a step above these Big 12 teams to you?
Not in my mind to this point. When I look at Arizona State, I see a team that's on fire right now and playing great football. Kenny Dillingham has got that team playing some really inspired football right now. Saw a hype video of him giving a locker room speech the other day, and that guy's a maniac. He is out of his mind, and that team's playing for him. But for me, I don't think Boise State is really. I don't want to say earn the fourth spot to this point, but the college football committee's made it pretty clear that strength of schedule and quality of win has become a big part of this whole equation here. And for me, I think Arizona State probably outlast Boise in that matter.
I agree, and they've played no debate at all a tougher schedule. Had to play on some tough environments. The Big 12 has been up and down, but look, there's some big schools, big universities with some big time environments they have to go play in. So I think strength of schedule, like you said, goes in their way, and they're playing some good ball right now. But with South Carolina, it looks like the committee doesn't care about who's playing good ball right now. And as a Georgia fan, Tennessee fan, I'll speak for myself. I'm glad. I mean, I'm glad it looks like South Carolina is not going to get in. They can mess some seasons up. Sellers, watching that Clemson game, we talked about it. I had South Carolina. People are bounce off that guy. Like, he is a Terminator on the field. I'm like, why is he not running the football every play? Like, it's ridiculous. That last touchdown he had, I was like, there's got to be a flag. Like, that just did not look right with people bouncing off of him. But yeah, the committee, you never know what they take into account. But South Carolina, they're the team that I think has the biggest gripe.
Yeah, definitely. I think coming into this game, they seem to be the hottest out of these teams. You look at Alabama, Ole Miss, and South Carolina, the thing that's killing them is they lost to both those teams that are in front of them, and they lost.
Of course, this show is brought to you by BetUS. And when you use the code YouTube150 at BetUS.com on your first deposit, you get back 150%, up to $2,000. Now, you can gamble on NFL, college football, basketball, baseball. The World Series are coming up. We got college football at an all-time high. Heisman winners are going back and forth. Who's going to the SEC? Who's going to the Big 12? All kinds of things. You can literally gamble on anything you set your pretty little mind to. And on your second and third deposit, you get back 125%, up to $2,000. So be sure to go check out BetUS.com. Use the code YouTube150 to take advantage of these offers while they still last. Now back to the show.
For South Carolina, I think the thing that seems to be hurting them right now is those two teams in front of them beat them. And unfortunately for them, Probably should have beat Alabama. Had some calls that didn't go their way there at the end, and I think Sellers' fumble there at the end of that game really kind of cost them. And then they got blown out by Ole Miss. I think that's what's hurting them right now. Obviously, out of those three teams, they're the hottest and playing the best ball. And like you said, Sellers has looked incredible these last few weeks. But they had their chances, and a lot of people are going to say they got kind of screwed in that LSU game, but they were up in that game and gave it up. So for me, I look at those three games and especially those two losses against Bama and Ole Miss, and that's what's really hurting them to this point.
Yeah, I think it's two different things. It's the committee always says best teams, but it's best team, but best resume. Like they look at both, and I think right now they don't have the latter, right? They don't have the resume. And one thing I'll give Shane Beamer there. He was speaking, and if Clemson were to win the ACC, that's the only way I could see potential movement. I mean, if they just went into Clemson, beat them, and then Clemson wins the ACC, I mean, you can't. It's hard not to, have that be a data point. You hear that damn term so much, but that's got to be a data point. But you're right. They did not win the games they needed to win. The Clemson game or the LSU game, whether they like it or not, you cannot allow 40 points. I think they let up 40 points at home. I mean, that regardless of the call, that's bad. So they had their chances. I say they have a little bit of a gripe, but yeah, 3 losses. If you have 3 losses, that should be the rule from this point forward. No social media, nothing. 3 losses, you're done. Outside of conference championship loss, that's different.
Yeah. And I think if, the majority or, 2 of those losses or all 3 of those losses are the teams that are sitting in this bracket right now, I think you might have a little bit of a different argument there. But I think it's going to be interesting in this ACC game. I think that's the one that we could maybe see another team get booted or sneak in. I think if Clemson were to win, does the committee move Clemson in and boot Bama out and then put SMU and keep SMU there? Because they continue to say conference championship isn't going to get you booted from this bracket. And at that point, you'd have to argue that Clemson's the at-large champ and SMU is record-wise better than Alabama. And if we're talking 3 losses, then Bama should be kicked out. So I think that's the game we're going to have to look at for any movement to happen in this bracket.
Yep, that's the only spot. There's 1 spot up for grabs. I mean, 2 really with Arizona State. I mean, everyone has Arizona State, but Iowa State, I mean, look, they have 2 losses too. They could win that game. Sure. But yeah, that spot. And, if SMU wins, likely Bama bumps in, right? But Clemson winning, it's hard to see SMU dropping 5 spots. They're 8 right now. I mean, yeah. I think they made the statement that SMU would be in, and they deserve to be in. They had a lot. I think their loss was first 4 weeks of the season as well. So, yeah, they're playing well. For me, it's one of those things. Leaving that Alabama stadium, I definitely said some words to Bama fans. Say, hey, look, we're going to see you guys again. Maybe added some more after that, but I would like to see Bama again, but I would be just fine if they sat this one out. Where are you at there?
Yeah, I'm good if they sit this one out. I think I'm good if they sit this one out. They've had a good run. They can sit this one out. I think the committee would like to see them in. I think, as far as views and what ESPN's probably looking for, they want Alabama in. But for the rest of us and everybody that's kind of fatigued of the whole Alabama thing, it wouldn't be the worst thing to see them out.
Yeah, I mean, it's a transitionary period. Look, they deserve it. It's like a probation. 1 year after Nick Saban, you got to be like the rest of us. You got to sit out and watch the fun.
Yeah, and they had their chances too. They had their chances to be in this and be square in this. So,
dude, they lost by 3 touchdowns to Oklahoma. I don't understand. I mean, I can see, just those 3 teams, like who lost to who. I mean, you got to put Alabama, I guess, up there, but just that loss alone, you almost just have to disqualify them. I mean, That's embarrassing. 3 points. What? If Georgia did that, I guarantee you they're out. But that's another day. And, I'm fired up right now. I've been going back and forth with these Texas fans on TikTok, JT. I had a TikTok about how Georgia just doesn't lose to anyone but Bama in neutral field games. So they got me fired up, but I don't want. Yeah, I don't want to see them. But if we do, I would like to get the get back. But I mean, just the leniency that I feel like they get that no one else gets is baffling to me. I feel like I'm in La La Land when it happens. But anyway, but I guess we're just going to be, at least me. I'm a Clemson fan this weekend.
Yeah, no, I'm good with seeing Clemson win that game, and I think they have great shots to win that game as well. I think
Me
they're going
too.
to be. I think they're going to be a little pissed off coming off that South Carolina game, and a game they probably thought they should have won. So,
Yeah.
I'm good with Clemson winning and Alabama getting booted.
And it says a lot. Clemson, Ohio State, they did fight back with the flag thing, but Clemson, they didn't let it get there. They stopped them. You saw that? They stopped them at the 50. Weren't even going to let it get there. So there's some
Yep.
pride. I like Clemson in that spot. Anything else that stuck out to you with these rankings from this week?
Yeah, for me, and we kind of talked about it a little earlier. This might be a homer thing, and I'm going to support my team, back my team here. But Ohio State, somehow Tennessee is above them in the AP poll, and for them to take Ohio State and put them at the 8, or what is it, the 8
8.
seed? Yeah, the 8 seed, and give them that home playoff game is just to me. Michigan at home is 1,000% worse than Tennessee losing to Arkansas on the road. It is. Like, this Michigan team is awful. They threw for 60 yards. I mean, it was horrible.
60 yards. That's
they threw
crazy.
For 60 yards, and you had
On the
them.
road.
The quarterback throws a terrible interception on the goal line, gives you guys the opportunity right there to pretty much take this game over and be like, all right, we're done screwing around. Let's go win a football game. And you ruined it. And you lose to your rival, who Ryan Day cannot beat. The born on third base thing continues to get to him. Harbaugh has turned him into an absolute mental midget. He can't handle it. And for them to go out and say that, and then say, Tennessee's worse or loss is worse, and then Ohio State's win is better against the Penn State team who hasn't beaten anybody. Like, what are we talking about here? So that one really got to me. I don't understand that one. And then I'm not a Notre Dame guy, so them being, not having to play a soul all year and losing to Northern Illinois and being the 6th seed is just pretty outlandish to me as well.
Yeah, I mean, the trend that I'm hearing here and the trend that I see is, look, how long have we been hearing our entire lives, my entire life, about an SEC bias? I think this entire time it's been a psyop to cover for the Big Ten bias. Are you kidding me? They got 4 teams in the top 4. They don't beat anyone. They just beat each other. They don't schedule anything out of conference. It's crazy. How you can say there's SEC bias with who line up a Michigan schedule. Take Michigan out. They're out of the picture. They did play Texas. Ohio State, put them at Indiana versus a Georgia non-conference schedule, Alabama even. It's non-comparable. So I think it's all been a cover-up, JT, this entire time, to cover up for the Big Ten bias this whole time, because they need it. They're the ones that need like that bias to get them in, get that extra team. So that actually just came to me just now as you were talking. So, but it's crazy. And I think once the playoff starts, we get into some of these Big Ten SEC matchups, it'll be shed. The light will be shed on that. Especially, I would love to see, I want Georgia to win this game, but if we lose and Cignetti comes to Athens, I would love that. I would love that game.
Yeah. Now, I think just to kind of add on here, I understand the schedule is a schedule, and the whole divisions thing being taken out of the Big Ten and the SEC has made it tough to schedule a lot of these games and make it fair in a way. But I think the college football playoff and the whole organization itself is going to have to take a long, hard look in the mirror and be like, all right, we're going to have to restructure this thing, because for Indiana, the Big Ten had a down year. You bring in USC, you think they're going to be formidable. You bring in, all these teams from the Pac-12, Washington, and they're no good. And it's like, all right, I understand that they had a down year, but it's crazy how they have it ranked and played out here when strength of schedule seems to be a large part of the equation.
Yeah, I would love to see. I mean, there's got to be, what you're saying is we got to have what's the word? It's not parity, but uniform. Like we got to have like the NFL, but you're playing. Everyone plays each other in a certain way. I mean, there's too many teams to do that,
Yeah.
but you got to have like in writing, you got to have these type of quad one. Basketball has quad one wins, quad two wins. You got to have something like that, and you got to have something in writing to say, all right, well, they have this. Because other than that, it's just all right. Well, it's so subjective, and you're never going to know what they're picking, what factors they're weighing to make these in or out decisions. So they got to have something on paper that everyone can see, I think. But
Yeah, and I like your basketball approach there too. At the beginning of the year, all the basketball teams, they do the ACC, SEC Challenge, the Big Ten SEC Challenge. So we're at the point now with football. We got the scheduling of these small like cupcake schools. If this is going to be the route we're going to take, has to be gone. Like we're going to have to start looking at cross conference games to start the year. Way more of them. Maybe you play 3 or 4. You play a Big 10 team, you play a Big 12 team, you play, something like that to where this is it makes a little bit more sense, and the schedules can be a little bit tougher on some of these teams.
you're right. You know what they could, and they could even do. I mean, you can't the basketball does Maui, like the Maui Invitational, something like that. Like that's what you're saying. Some type of, who knows? Maybe like a, I don't know.
Like this whole week has been the ACC SEC Challenge for college basketball. They all play each other, so it's like
like 2 weeks dedicated to that. Like
Yeah.
instead of playing Missouri State, maybe shorten the season a year and have SEC ACC weeks. Something like that. So it's time for some change. We're changing everything. They're going to come out with salaries, right, for NIL. It's time to do full scale changes, I believe.
Yep.
So, but I do see, it's a business, right? And me and you doing this right now, I think how many people they get talking about this with these reveals. So that's part of it as well. But to put a bow on the playoff, the only other thing that I would like to say is, the Notre Dame thing, that 5 seed, it's obviously the best spot to be in, and it looks like it was made just for Notre Dame to sit in there and play Arizona State at home. I mean, that's the craziest thing ever. I mean, if they get that 5 seed, that needs to be looked at as well.
They should have to create a real schedule. I mean, you can't just schedule Army and Navy and say those are our toughest games of the season.
And then lose to Northern Illinois and get the 5 seed, and Georgia's got to play Timbuktu. Everyone, I mean, it's crazy. I mean,
they're living off of that Texas A&M win, and Texas A&M, we saw them at the end of the year. They weren't really much of a factor anyway. So it's just crazy to me. It's crazy.
Yeah. But I mean, let's just take a second. I mean, what a year of college football. I mean, this is the greatest year of college. Like most parity, you never know what's going to happen. That's what college football is in my lifetime. Literally every week on the edge of your seat. So I mean, it's going to be very interesting to see how the actual play. I mean, we've been talking about the playoff for years, since COVID, and it's actually going to start. It's kind of weird to even think about what it's going to look like, but I am excited. But got some work to do before we get there. Georgia takes on Texas this Saturday afternoon, 4 p.m. Again, like I said, I was making some TikToks about how numbers are in Georgia's favor. I am in awe at the line of Texas -3. I cannot believe it. I was talking to my dad about it. JT, can you, as a non-biased person, explain to me what they're looking at Texas -3?
I think for whatever reason they want to look at that Texas A&M game and give them a lot of props, which I'm not going to lie, they look good. Defense looked good. They got a good defensive line. It's kind of crazy to me with how they lost to Georgia at home, and for this to be the situation that we're in with them being the favorite in this game. I think they're taking. Well, I think it comes down to that Georgia Tech game for Georgia more than anything in this spot. I think they're away from them in that game. I think it's hard. It's a tough thing to do. Georgia Tech showed up. Georgia Tech's not a bad football team. Georgia Tech beat Miami this year. Haynes King played his balls off that whole game. And so I think it's hard to gauge and take a lot from a rivalry game. And because that other team's going to give their best in that spot. So, that's for me, I think it's a little recency bias. And, Georgia also struggled early against UMass. Maybe that's coming into play here a little bit. Finished really well, but I think that might be coming into play here a little bit. But, probably recency bias, and they look at that Texas game last week and say, hey, this team is maybe better than they thought, and they think Georgia's maybe a little worse than they thought. So.
Yeah. I mean, it's two things for me. I mean, yeah, I give them that. Georgia has not looked good since that game against Texas. I mean,
Tennessee,
they lost.
Tennessee game. Yeah.
Besides that, I mean, they lost to Ole Miss. They looked bad against UMass. They looked, like you're saying, last 2 weeks recency bias. But we were texting about this in our group chat. Georgia, it's not good, but they play down to their level of competition. At least this version of Georgia does.
Yeah, you were gonna be annoyed at me about that, but I was speaking facts.
You were, and to me, it's just like, all right, Georgia does, but they're going to win this game. Like it doesn't hurt you until it hurts you, and it almost did to the nth most degree in that Georgia Tech game. I mean, you couldn't be closer to losing, but hopefully if that doesn't wake you up, then what will? And I'm a believer that all these experience 8 overtime games in Tuscaloosa having to come back. Georgia has faced every scenario you could think of heading into a playoff. But that's not my point. My point is, look, the committee is looking at, I know the committee and odds makers are different things, but Texas from a month and a half ago, their offensive line could not block our defensive line. Jalen Walker had 6 sacks, 2 fumbles. What is going to make that guy be able to block that guy that much better? Like, to me, it's just the things that Georgia dominated that game with are not – I don't see how it's fixable. I don't see how it's one game to the next it can be that big of a difference. Like, it's not like Georgia and Alabama a couple of years ago when Alabama won in the SEC championship game. And then, Georgia beat him in the Natty. This was at Texas. This was a game where our starting quarterback threw 4 picks. I mean, we didn't play good, and we still won by 2 touchdowns. They're throwing stuff on the field. They changed a call. Just the way that game turned out, I don't see how Texas is suddenly going to be able to dominate the trenches, because that's where that game Georgia dominated. Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
So the line, I mean, Vegas always knows something that worries me, but I have never been more confident. Georgia has not lost to anyone, not named Bama, in 6 years on a neutral field. Now, guess who that team was that they lost to? Texas in 2018. But that was a long time ago. And I just don't believe Kirby is going to allow Texas is barely an SEC team. They're not going to walk into Atlanta, Georgia's backyard, and win an SEC championship. I just don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't really see it either. I think I anticipate a better game. I think Sark is going to come in with a little bit better of a game plan than what they went with in that first game. I think we're going to see a little bit more Arch Manning in this game. I feel like if you watch that game last week and how Haynes King was able to run the ball from the quarterback position, I think he might try and take advantage of that. So it'll be interesting. Like I said, I thought that Texas's defense looked really good against Texas A&M. Take that with a grain of salt. Texas A&M hasn't looked great here recently, but they have a good D line. So it'll be, I think if Georgia's offensive line struggles at all, which we have seen them do, it could be close and it could be a nail biter in this one. But I think it'll definitely be closer. I feel like a little bit more, but I think it'll be a closer game.
Yeah, and it's one of those weird things where Georgia's defense has looked worse since that game, but guess who's looked a lot better? Old boy Carson.
Active on Snapchat still. He's still active on Snapchat, even with a girlfriend.
The problem with Carson, and I've gone full 360 on Carson. The problem was never Carson, JT. The problem was never Carson. Maybe some Carson, but our receivers are pathetic, bro. Yeah, we can't catch the ball. We lead the country in drops. What quarterback is going to be able to easily overcome a wide receiver core that can't catch the football? Yeah, to the tune of the most drops in the country. So I've come around on him. I mean, I think Carson balls out on Saturday. I really do. And we need to, because if Georgia loses, the committee says they're not going to punish teams, but they're going to put Georgia on the road in the big house at Penn State probably. So we need to win this game because that's where Carson struggles. On the road, he's a mental midget. I'll give it to. I mean, he is. And on the road, he's not going to be able to handle it. So we need to stay away from the road. Neutral and home only.
Especially in Happy Valley where it's going to be cold.
Yeah. I don't need that, man.
Cold.
Georgia will lose that game. If that happens, if Georgia has to go on the road any more this season, they're going to lose, I think.
That'd be a house divided. That'd be a house divided for your family.
Yeah, it would. Look, Penn State, they got some newfound energy. They do. They weren't expecting to be in this game at all. I think this is the game they win. I think this is the game that and we'll pivot. Actually, before we pivot into that game, because I got something I want to say about James Franklin, but picks on this game. I got dogs. I got dogs money line. Check out my TikTok. I said go to the bank and take out a mortgage on your home. I mean, look, I think it's a lock of the century. I think we light it up. I like the over as well. JT, what you got for that game?
You like the over in this game?
I do like the over. I think Carson. Look, Georgia's been scoring a lot of points recently.
Really?
Since the second half of that Tennessee game.
I'm not going to pick a side here, but I like the under. I'm on the under 49.5. I think this is going to be a little bit of a rock fight. I think it's going to be a defensive game. Like I said, I think Texas' defense looked pretty good last week. I think Georgia's defense will step up. Kirby will have those boys ready to play. Always does. And I think it's going to be sloppy with these offenses. I really do. So I like the under 49.5.
Well, look, we couldn't be more further off because you remember that LSU game a couple of years ago when Georgia won it's like 52-35. I'm thinking something like that. I really am.
I think it's going to be a defense.
No, I don't think Georgia's going to score 50 points. So my score prediction is 41-27 dogs. I think Texas is going to be able to score late. Are you there with me? So, yeah, my score prediction for this game is 41-27. I think Georgia scores a lot early, and I think Texas, they get their points late. Again, I think Georgia's defensive line is going to just destroy whoever's back there. They put Arch back there, whatever, early in this game, and I think they will score some points late. But, yeah, 41-27 dogs. Other conference championship games, Penn State. I was just about to say, I think this lines up pretty well for them. They weren't expecting to be in this game. Oregon, with this season, JT, there's not meant to be an undefeated team. I mean, there's been chaos every week. They tried to lose to Wisconsin. This is the week that Penn State wins, and I think they may win big.
Yeah, I'm on the opposite side of you again. I've been vocal about how I don't think Penn State's been very great, to be honest with you. That Minnesota game really sticks out in my head. They did not look good in that game at all. Probably should have lost that game if we're being honest. And I think, I think Oregon's going to win this game by, what's the spread, 3.5? I could see Oregon winning by about 10. I don't believe in James Franklin in big games at all. He hadn't really won a big game, in my opinion. You can say USC is a big game if you want to, but USC's not been USC this year. So really could have lost that game too, if we're being honest. So, I think Oregon's gonna easily take this game. Dan Lanning has been an unbelievable coach for that team. He's a heck of a motivator. If he took anything from Kirby, he took how to motivate guys and how to get guys going. I think Oregon's, they haven't played anybody really other than Ohio State, won by 1 point, but I think they're a really good football team, and I think they'll win this game pretty handily.
So Dan Lanning, good motivator, but he hasn't proven he can win the big game, late decisions. Look, that Wisconsin game, he tried to lose. That fake field goal was bananas. I've never seen a crazier call than that. So I don't think it's going to come down to that. I see visions, JT, like Tyler Warren this, Tyler Warren that, Tyler Warren this, Tyler Warren that, Tyler Warren throwing deep balls, Tyler Warren catching deep balls. I just see Tyler Warren having a day here. Look, Oregon's going to Indianapolis. Are you kidding? That's Big Tenville. Penn State, look, I could just see in that stadium. I've been in that stadium when Georgia won against Alabama. That's a Big Ten stadium. That's going to be a Big Ten football game. That's That's a Tyler Warren express, I feel. I think it's going to be 21-10. Tyler Warren, 3 touchdowns, rushing, passing, receiving.
You throw that in a parlay.
I think it's going to be the Tyler Warren express. I really do. That guy should be up for the Heisman. That guy's amazing.
He's their whole team. He's their whole offense, basically. This guy's he does everything. I don't know. I don't see Penn State being able to score many points. I think this game I like 24, 27, 13. I think Penn State maybe puts up 13, maybe 17, but I think Oregon's going. I think Oregon will handle it.
I like the under. What's the total in that?
Let's look. 50.5.
Oh, love the under.
50.5.
That's my lock. That's my lock.
Under. We got to talk about. Speaking of Penn State unders, that Minnesota game, dude. That's the wackiest end of the first half I've ever seen in my entire life.
They scored 20 points in a minute and 30 seconds.
Crazy, man. Oh, it was nuts.
I was on the quad box and look, so I was like, we had that last leg of a parlay, right? And they're at we're at the 50-yard line. I forget who was at the 50. I think it was Penn State. It was at the 50. I'm like, all right, let's get they punt the football here. Minnesota's got to go the length of the field in a minute and 30 seconds. We're good. We're solid. They got the stop, punted it, and then all hell broke loose. I think it was a pick 6, fumbles. It was something bad.
Yeah. Only way a game goes over like that is turnovers.
In the second half, they didn't score at all. It was miserable. I mean, we should have. That was a hit.
Crazy.
Other game, I guess we can just go into quick picks for the other games. I got Arizona State. They're rolling. And I got Clemson. And they're not favored, so I like Clemson money line there. Maybe even go look at that underdog parlay, Penn State Clemson dogs.
There you
go. Take that home. What you got, JT?
I like Clemson as well. I honestly haven't watched much SMU this year, but
me neither.
I just want Clemson to win solely so Alabama doesn't get in. I think that would be pretty awesome. And then I like Arizona State. I'm a Kenny Dillingham guy. I like his style, so I'm gonna go Arizona State.
Okay. What's your lock?
Lock. This is a tough one. What's the spread in that Arizona State game?
I think they're like all 3 points. I think they're 3 points.
1.5. 1.5. That's a little weird. That's a little weird. Give me Clemson +2.
Clemson, yeah. There's a lot of talk about Arizona State. So, yeah, I'm not putting them in the underdog parlay. I guess they're favored. But, yeah, there's too much talk about them. Iowa State could steal that spot, I feel.
Yeah. Clemson +2. That's my lock.
And my lock is that Penn State under. Take it to the bank. But dogs is a true lock as well. But thanks for watching. And goal for the channel. Look, we've been sitting at 375 subscribers for a while. Let's get to 400. Like, comment, subscribe, score predictions for Georgia, Texas. And we'll see y'all next week with whenever the playoff field is set, we'll come at you with a show. See you next time. Go Dogs.
GBO.